Welcome to the Red and Trade channel. Today we got with us Ryan Yu. Ryan, would you like to tell us how did you do in the previous YCS?
Yeah, hi guys, and thanks to Nesh for helping me out with this deck profile. So I played Dragon Link this past weekend for YCS Vancouver. I went 8-0 day one, and then scooped round 9, and then round 10 just fished for information, and then immediately lost in top 32 to Kashtira. But I think this deck was a really good call as Unchained picked up in popularity because the Bestials are very good into it. And Droll is starting to fall out of the format as people realize that it's not really good against Unchained or Kashtira. I really like my list, so I guess we can just get into it. For the normal summons, 3 Black Metal, 3 Safer. This is pretty standard. 2 Tracer, 1 Recharger, 1 Caliber for the Rockets. It's also pretty standard. Some people play 2 Recharger instead of the 1 Caliber. I had Caliber come up several times for being able to Tracer at another level for Tuner because being able to make Dispatter when you're playing through boards or trying to set up your turn one makes your end field or like kill potential both so much better. So I always want to be able to synchro summon that card, and Caliber helps with that. For the Bestials, 3 Lebellion, 3 Magna, 3 Sorrow, 1 Juris. This is all pretty standard as well. The only thing that you might see is sometimes people play 1 Saronir. I just really wanted to hard open Saronir because going first, drawing this card makes your combo much better, since you'll be able to Ravine, dump Safer, and then when the Saronir hits the grave, you can add back Rebellion. This was almost 3 copies of Jurisworm in 1
Yeah, I
Saronir.
was just gonna ask you actually, because we
Yeah,
saw in several European lists that they were siding 3 Druisworm just for the Unchained matchup because Druisworm is very oppressive. Like, how come that you decided still to go for 1 Druisworm, which is very standard for this deck anyways?
so I think the difference between drawing Saronir and Jurisworm when you go first is really important. Like, Saronir is so much better to draw going first.
Yeah,
Going second as well, like, it does come up where going second, the Saronir is better to draw because it works with your engine better. But the
yeah,
main thing was that I thought that the Unchained players who were really putting time into the deck, like Pack and Jesse and Gunther, would all be aware of how good Jurisworm was. And there are combos you can do in the Unchained deck to play around it. You can summon the Caesar before putting any darks in the grave, and then the Bestials become dead. Or you can just do a combo where you never put darks in the grave at all and end on a wider field. So I expected that if I was trying to win the tournament, then I would play against really good Unchained players who would know how to play around the Bestials, so I didn't think it was worth it to have the extra Jurisworms. And I was actually siding out the extra Saronir going second against that deck, if I thought my opponent would know how to play around it.
hmm
Uh, so white, black, red, or red and B. Uh, for the non-engine hand traps, I picked Nibiru and Ash. Ash is just way too good against pretty much any deck. Uh, if you can hit something like Prosperity or Thrust, against pretty much any deck, it's amazing. If you can hit the Kashtira field spell, sometimes it breaks them. Sometimes Unchained also passes to an Ash. It can negate Book of Eclipse. It can break Purely sometimes. It's basically just too good against everything, and in some matchups like the Chimera deck or Labyrinth, it's actually just an FTK on its own, so I think you have to play it. And then Nibiru was because Unchained is the best deck right now, so Nibiru is the best hand trap against that. Why not main deck it? It's also very good against Kashtira, because you want your non-engine to be answers to a huge Arise Heart board. So
yeah,
yeah, these are
but
both very good.
Unchained respects Nibiru very easily.
It does respect Nibiru very easily, but sometimes they don't have the hand to play around Nibiru, and Nibiru wins you the game. Sometimes, if you Nibiru them, they can still make a board, but it's going to be a bit of a weaker board. And then you're still like trading Nibiru for some field presence, and you get to put the body on the board. And the thing that's special about Nibiru in this deck is if I draw Nibiru with a Bestial, it's much better than just Nibiru on its own, which would be in
Yeah,
most other decks, because you can
yeah,
Bestial the Yama, and then they lose the free monster reborn when something gets destroyed after you Nibiru them, and they pass on
yeah,
like nothing. And then 1 Levy, spells 3 Quick Launch, 3 Space, Root Sector, Ravine, Regained, all standard, and then 3 Book of Moon, 1 Talents. Uh, I think in a lot of lists I was seeing, people were playing 3 Book of Eclipse and no Book of
yeah,
Moon.
yeah,
Uh, I thought that was kind of wrong because Ash Blossom is very heavily played right now. Like the same reason that I'm playing it. One of the reasons is it can negate cards like Eclipse. And I didn't want one of my answers to Arise Heart or like trying to beat the purely deck going second to be outable by Ash. Uh, and there
I
were
mean,
actually,
like Kashtira has to play it. Kashtira has to play Ash, so I guess it
yeah,
makes sense to play Wukong.
yeah, there were multiple games actually where I had Book of Moon and my opponent had Ash, and I needed the book to resolve. And if it was Eclipse, I would have lost that game. So the theory worked out. I would definitely play Book of Moon again instead of Eclipse. It's also just a little bit better going first, because you can use it more freely with your interrupts instead of having to book your own stuff.
Hmm.
And then the one talent is because you'll see there's Thrust in the side deck, and for side deck space, I just decided to make the one talents. This is not anything new. This is something that people have been doing before, but it was good.
Yeah.
I would do it again. For the side deck, which is what I think kind of the interesting part of this list is, I played kind of more board breakers than anything else. You'll see there's no hand traps here. So the first card
Yeah.
is 3 Phantasme. Uh, I think I've seen people been playing this recently in the Rescue Ace deck and the
Yes.
Dragon Link deck.
Discarding Dragon Link is so absurd.
It's ridiculous, yeah. So it's a dragon, of course. It's dark. It has like perfect synergy with the engine. And Dragon Link is the type of deck where it can push through a lot of negates. Like
Yeah.
the Kashtira deck, for example, or the Purely deck aren't super good at pushing through like an entire field going second. But with the Dragon Link deck, if you have like an insane handful of gas, you can actually do it. So
Yeah.
Phantasma in this type of deck, if it makes your hand like perfect, it gives you a win condition going second. Uh, it also helps you draw into cards like the Bestials or Nibiru or Book of Moon when you're going second against mainly Unchained. This was the main idea. This card, I just wanted as many ways to beat Unchained as possible because I expected to play a lot of it, and that's what the side deck is designed around. But yeah, being able to like Phantasme, make your hand better, draw in a card like a book to beat the Wave King Caesar is really good. They usually won't go for Griffin against you because they're too scared of a Bestial to use Muckracker's effect.
Yeah.
Uh, Phantasme can also be used in any matchup where they link summon, like the Rescue Ace deck. You can Phantasme and draw like 3 or 4 cards, and it makes your hand amazing. Uh, Against the Vanquishal deck, against the Mirror match, there's just so many decks where they randomly link summon, and Phantasme is really good.
Yeah.
And it also has perfect synergy with another card I cited, which is Ultimate Slayer. So I I think this card's like, heavily slept on right now as an answer to several decks, mainly Unchained, of course. I also did play the Trouble Sunny in the extra deck and the Kiskel and Lila Brick because it just makes the card so much more powerful. Worst case, you can
Mm.
just pitch this for Ravine or Chaos Space. Or if you draw this with Slayer, it still works because Trouble Sunny can send the brick from your hand, so it's still a 2 for 2. But
Hmm.
the things that make this card good are, firstly, it shuffles back instead of sending. So when you're playing into the Unchained deck and you shuffle back their Soul of Rage instead of like putting it back in the grave for them to summon, it's much, much better. Uh, and also, the obvious thing is that it gets rid of 2 cards, right? So I can activate this, shuffle back the Link, send the brick, and then get rid of the Caesar. And I just used 1 card to break their entire field. But let's say I pair this card with like a Book of Moon. If I draw Slayer with Book of Moon, then I can Slayer send like a back row instead, try to snipe like a book. And then the Book of Moon outs the Caesar. So because Slayer sends any card on the field with the brick, it just pairs well with basically any non-engine. And it's not locked into just outing one type of threat, like something like Lava Golem is, in comparison, right? If you open Lava Golem Book of Moon, you're just sick because you have a dead card. But
Okay, but
this is
there
perfect,
are
yeah.
there are different instances, right? Like because you said Ultimate Slayer is good against Unchained, but like why did you pick this card over a card like Dark Ruler No More that would be more alive against a decklist like Kashtira? Why did you pick this card over a card like Evilly Match that's also good against Unchained?
I think this card is just higher impact. This deck was designed to just beat Unchained because that was kind of the medical. Like if I wanted to win the event, I would expect to play against people like Pack and Jesse and Gunther who are
Mhm.
playing Unchained. So I wanted to try to make a deck that had an advantage in that matchup. And I'd rather have like this instead of evenly against Unchained because they can still do stuff with like chaining the trap to pop their own stuff. I think like if you draw this card going second against Unchained, you're just in such a good position as long as your hand is playable. And I thought I had enough for the Castillo matchup. I can like go over the siding pattern quickly, but the rest of the side deck after these 7 cards, which are mainly for Unchained, is a bit more versatile. So there's two thrusts. It's good against basically anything going second. Against the cash deck, you can search either the talents in the main deck, you can search Feather Duster, or you can search Herald of the Abyss to beat like a Rise
Mm-hmm.
Heart with Lance, or just a Rise
Mm-hmm.
Heart. Uh, these are just the best targets in the game for Thrust. I also sided
Yeah.
the one barrier to be able to put in against Purely for Thrust.
Yeah.
Uh, and you might be a little bit confused because there's no Daruma in my deck list. But looking at the non-engine that's in my deck, when I go first against Cash, I'm actually just happy to keep Book, and I'm happy with Nibiru and Ash. But against the Purely deck, I have to kind of take out Nibiru, and something's got to go in instead. So I was putting in the 2 thrusts and 1 barrier. And I thought that was fine as well, because if you compare like Kashtira to Purely, Purely's the deck that's actually much more likely to hand trap you. Like I would say Purely lists are more likely to have like they usually have Bestials in their side, whereas Cash can't do that. They have Ash and Nibiru as well in the main deck. And Cash should probably be setting into those, but I know there are some Kashtira players who can't find the space for all of that because they're trying to build for like every deck in the format. So I thought this card was more reliable.
Yeah.
The last card in the side deck is Xyz Anchor. So this card is just completely broken. For anyone who doesn't know what it does, but yeah, you can't respond to it. So that's like, the first time this card's crazy. And it basically just kills an Xyz monster and summons its materials back from the grave. So against a Rise Heart, this doesn't actually give them back anything because you get rid of their Rise Heart, and then since the materials are anything back, so this is a card that beats Lance, beats Judgment, beats literally anything for free. And against the Purely deck, it also beats Noir because it doesn't affect the Noir. So it doesn't matter if they hard make Noir or if they have the trap set up, you can just slam Xyz down and then kill them.
It's more like how Noir is, how Noir text is written, because it's only immune when it has 5 or more materials, but these cards affect the materials before, so by removing all the materials, then Noir is not anymore affected, which means that then it goes back to the extra deck.
Yeah, exactly. It's because the first part of doesn't affect Noir, it affects the materials. And then the second part affects Noir after the materials are gone. So it
Yeah.
works. But yeah, no, this card's crazy. Every time I saw this card, it was really good. I won 2 matches where game 3 going second, my opponent had like a Rise Heart Judgment or Noir with Judgment, and I had Xyz on card. It was like the only card that could have won me the game. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think the side deck was really good. I wouldn't change anything with it. Even though I like focused really hard on trying to beat Unchained with this deck choice, the fact that I was siding the Slayer and the Phantasme really helped me round out the siding pattern, uh, even for rogue decks. Like I played against a Runic Sprite deck, and I was able to side both of these in, right? Because they have to link some into play. Uh,
Yeah.
the same for Rescuers, right? Like Ultimate Slayer against Math Mech Rescuers. Like even in matches where you don't expect it to be good, like if they end on the Terahertz, you spin it back and then you get a free send. So you're turning off like 2, 3 disrupts with 1 card, and it's a really good trade every time. And then the extra deck: 1 striker, 1 pisty, 1 seal, 1 rom, 1 IP. I know not everyone plays IP. Sometimes this is like Chaos Angel or Scarlight, but
Scarlight.
I
Usually Scarlight, because this deck has some issues clearing boards like going second in main phase too.
yeah. So that was something I considered and tested. But I found that most of the time, if I was Scarlighting going second, I was probably in the losing position anyway, because you have to get rid of all your cards to do it. Whereas if you play IP, when you do your turn 1 combo going first, it lets you respect Nibiru a little bit more, because instead of going for like Pisty Triple Burst, you can go for Seal up top and then combo under the Seal. And when you combo under the Seal, you need IP in your extra deck, because if you don't have IP, then the extra bodies that like, let's say when you go Romulus Pisty Triple Burst, when you link off the Romulus, you can get rid of an awkward body to use, like a Levianeer or a Lubellion that you summon back for the Pisty and Triple Burst
Mm-hmm.
line. But when
Mm-hmm.
you combo under Seal, you can't make Pisty. So
Yeah.
you have to do something with the extra materials that you have, and IP is the best thing to do with them. So I thought this card was really good because I expected a lot of people to play Nibiru. One dark, Unicorn, Triple Burst, Access Code, Borderland. This is all standard. The one Atom, I think this card's probably cuttable. Like, there's never a situation where I wanted to summon it. The reason I kept it in the extra deck was actually just for Ultimate Slayer, because I was in a weird game state where I needed to send like a Zeus back or a Caesar. Uh, but I'm sure you can keep this. One Borreload, Baron, Dispatter, and then the Trouble Sunny. I will say I didn't really miss Scarlet at all. Like, there were no games where I felt like I needed to actually win. And I think if you just play fast and like don't try to rely on it as a win con, then you don't need it.
That's it by the Red and Red channel. This was Nash and Ryan, and see you next time.